Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Andy Oshroff, and I'm the manager of USM's Career and Employment Hub. And we are very excited to have with us an employer panel this morning. I'll briefly kind of walk through what we have planned for you this morning. But first, I'm going to pass it over to Mariah Cunningham from Project Login, who is our partner in putting on this event, just to talk a little bit about Project Login.
Thank you very much, Andy. Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to thank our employers for taking a little bit of time out of your busy day. These panels are so valuable for the students to learn about what life is really like out in the computer science and IT workforce. Project Login, if you haven't heard of us, we are a program of Educate Maine that is focused on promoting computer science from kindergarten to grad school here in the state. There are a lot of career opportunities, there are a lot of educational opportunities, and we want to help connect you to all of them. So please take a look at our website. We will be starting to post internships very soon for the spring on our internships page. And always contact us if you have any questions. And finally, I would just like to thank our partners at USM for making this an easy process and helping to put together a great panel this morning. So thanks all.
Thank you, Mariah. So this morning, just to kind of briefly walk through our plan, we're gonna have a panel discussion for about an hour or so, and just Professor Monin and I will alternate questions for our panelists. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and we can add those into the conversation as we move along. And yeah, I don't want to delay us getting started here. So why don't we open up with our panelists just introducing themselves and talking a little bit about their background. And Caleb, maybe we can start with you, and I can kind of call on folks as we work around the circle here.
Yeah, happy to. My name's Caleb Pipkin. I'm a security solutions engineer at Logically. My background is a little different. I initially graduated with a computer science degree from UNC Chapel Hill, and I was hired on as a SQL dev at Logically. That lasted for all of 3 days. Greg gave me a project. He went, "Hey, can you get this done?" Got it done. He's like, "All right, I'm out of work for you. You mind helping out in the audit world?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." So I did audit for probably a year and a half, and he's like, "Hey, we're starting some security services. Do you mind helping with that?" Like, yeah, cool. Let's do this now. So I started doing some of the deployment work and the automation work behind our security services. And now I'm in a weird amalgamation role where I know enough about our security services and I know enough about the audit world where I do the scoping for both. He was like, "Yeah, you have the niche experience for it. We need to have somebody step into that role." So I was like, "Yeah, this sounds fun to do now." So my career path there has always been a little weird, but it's a fun place.
Awesome, thank you, Caleb. Why don't we stick with our friends at Logically, and Liz, maybe you could introduce yourself.
Sure, and Caleb isn't giving himself nearly enough credit. He's one of those unique people that has the blended acumen, and this is important for students to kind of understand. You don't necessarily have to study what you end up becoming an expert in, and Caleb just had a broad array of skill sets that he's been able to apply to whatever project he has to do. So my name is Liz Riley. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Logically. My responsibility is to make sure that essentially the trains run on time. I am not technical by nature, but I manage 2 large technical teams, one that delivers our project services, like the one that Caleb is on. So the folks who are delivering the security services, the higher level expertise. And then the second group that I'm responsible for are we call it managed services, the day-to-day IT doers, if you will, the folks who keep the lights on so you can check your email, be productive, do your job. So those two groups, I really make sure that we are where we are supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. We do what we say we're going to do, and that things just flow as smoothly as they can when the only reason why you're in existence is because technology breaks.
Awesome, thank you so much, Liz. And how about Kayla?
Hi, everyone. My name's Kayla. I'm an information security analyst at WEX Inc. I just graduated from USM this past May, so I'm a main USM graduate. So hello to all my fellow peers. So my career kind of started in high school when I first took this voc class in computer repair networking. I was kind of told, well, I'm good with computers, I'm good at math, so why don't you go into computers field? So in going to USM, I started out in computer science because I knew I wanted to be in computers, but I didn't know specifically what I wanted to do. So then I didn't like programming very much. So then I was like, okay, should I go into IT or cybersecurity? So I kind of found my niche and kind of played the field a little bit. So I have like a little bit of experience in like, hardware, software, programming, IT. And then I decided with cybersecurity because it was my niche. It was something that, just fell with me. And so I got the job at WEX, not knowing that I was going to get my job here at WEX as an intern last summer. And I worked with them over the summer full time. Then I worked co-op in my final year here at USM. And then this, past season, I got a job offer there to work with them full time. So now here I am. I work at, so I focus mostly in information security, risk and compliance. What my job does is basically it helps WEX stay compliant with federal regulations such as PCI, HITRUST, ISO, and several other regulations to make sure that our company's employees and our clients stay safe. So that's kind of what I do now. So, and it's really fun. It's overwhelming, but it's great.
Awesome, and congratulations for graduating from USM. Well
Thank
done.
you.
And Jim, how about you? Just introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure, I'm Jim Vernier. I'm the Director of IT Service Operations at Martins Point. Service Operations includes everything from the service desk or help desk onto desk side support and up to systems administration. So effectively, if it's live, we're your first stop. We are really embarking on a journey with the system administrators of working on stability and long-term maintenance and sustainability. That's the most exciting thing. Personally, I'm what I'd like to call an accidental IT person. This is a second career for me. Previously, I worked in the motorcycle business for Triumph and Ducati. Became the person who just understood most of the technology as those vehicles became more and more technologically advanced, just inadvertently. And then that led to a real interest in technology and thus a career. So that's where I'm at.
Great. Thank you all so much for being here this morning. Professor Monin, would you like to kind of start off after those great introductions with our panel?
Good morning, all. And I can't say how super excited I am about this panel of experts we have here. We have both hiring managers who's been in their positions for over 7 years, and we have people that are new in their positions as well. So I kind of wanted to hyper focus on the interview because I think we've got two different perspectives here. We've got people who have just survived the interview and the people that sit on the opposite side of the table. So for those that just got their position, I want to ask, how did you succeed? What advice would you give to somebody who's facing that crucial interview? And for those that are on the hiring side, I want to ask the alternate question, which is, what's the one mistake that you see in a lot of people that you really wish people would just, could avoid that in the first place? And so I think we'll just go around in the same order. Caleb, do you think you're ready?
Yeah, happy to answer that question. So I didn't have a formal interview experience going into my full-time position. I, like Kayla, was hired as an intern and migrated into working full-time for Logically. However, I did go through the interview process during there, if I'm being 100% honest, those don't hate me, migrating between internship and full-time. The thing that I found most useful in an interview was to be calm and to be yourself. It's both a skills test to a degree, but it's also a personality assessment. Are you going to fit well with the team? Are people going to like you? When you work in the IT industry, you're working in a collaborative team. So it's not entirely about what skill set do you bring. As a fresh graduate, you bring a robust skill set, but it's fairly broad. Especially coming from computer science, technology is changing and you can learn new things. The thing that they're really looking for though is, do they like you as a person? So coming in and acting as yourself, saying, hey, I do have these skills, but I'm also a person who's good at working with a team, was extremely helpful for me. The other thing that I found to be useful was to look up the skills assessment itself that the industry would have. So when I was looking at being a full-time software developer, I was looking at, oh, what do Google engineers, what are they going to ask me? What are Facebook devs going to ask me? What are those questions going to look like? And then there's a plethora of resources that break down those questions for you. So when it's game time, you're like, okay, this isn't that bad. I've studied for this for days. It's like a normal test for me. And so then all your nerves are gone. You're like, this is a normal day, not a big deal.
Awesome. And I think I'm going to skip the order and go to Kayla, which is the same side of that interview table. So, um, what advice do you have people for on the interview that you've learned?
Well, it definitely can be an up and down for me. Like, my internship was required in order to get my degree. So my junior year, I was like worried, thinking, okay, I need to find an internship. I need to find an internship. It was a place that was, looking and, wanted to interview me. I couldn't because of a traveling issue. And then months later, they contacted me again, showing interest, and I was all excited. And then I didn't get the internship. So literally I was like excited. Then I was like upset, thinking, oh no, this isn't going to happen. So then my senior year, or the summer prior to my senior year, I was so worried, thinking, I'm not going to get an internship. I'm not going to graduate. So what happened was I was looking for internships, and WEX at the time wasn't displaying their internship program. This was kind of later in the internship, application, timeline. And a friend was like, oh no, they are, still looking. Like, why don't you contact them? So I contacted them and I missed my interview because of there's a problem with the calendar software we were using. So I was totally scared. The morning of my interview, I was getting ready for class at 7:30 in the morning, got an email from them saying, hey, we missed an interview. They'd still like to talk to you. So then right there that morning, I had like a real quick 15-minute interview process. I was totally not prepared. I was psyching myself out thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to, bomb this. And so I was concerned. And then at the end of the day, I got a job offer. I was totally like so upset that morning because the questions weren't what I was expecting. I expected a much longer, interview. And, I was like, okay, remember what Mark Monin said, it's okay if you don't know the answer. It's okay if, but the interview was like, also trying to get to know me. Some of the questions were like, okay, where do you see yourself going? So it isn't just like, a test to see what you know, but it's also your personality, how well you'll work with other people, if you work in a team. And so for me, I was so concerned, but yet I thought I bombed it. And yet, they offered me the internship that day. And I was like, oh my gosh, like my mom was like, why were you so worried? Why were you so worried? I'm like, it's me. Okay. That's just how we work as students. We're like, okay, well, we need to succeed. We need things to go well. It's okay if you don't feel it's going to go well. Just they're trying to get to know you. So even if you don't have the answer, even if you're not sure, that's okay. Take a deep breath. And as Caleb said, be you. And so that's kind of my interview process.
All right, so now let's go to the other side of the table. And so if I could put Liz on the spot and say, what do you think are some of the major blunders that especially students end up doing when they sit for an interview?
Yeah, I think, and Kayla and Caleb touched on it individually just based on their own experiences. But the number one mistake that I see people making is, they try to answer a question that they don't know the answer to as though they know it. And both Kayla and Caleb experienced this. Like, you're getting interviewed for a position. The person interviewing you doesn't have all the answers. That's why we need this position. So go in there, be human. If you don't know the answer, prepare kind of a response for an authentic response that says, I don't have experience in that particular example. Here's something that I think might be similar, or I don't have experience in this, but here's how I would handle it based upon my common sense and gut. So it's okay. You don't have to have every academic answer. You kind of end up looking more foolish when you try to like buzzword your way through what you think the right answer would be. Just be honest. And the second piece that I see, and I experienced it myself, Kayla and I probably have the same personality type, which is anxious high achiever. But really for the students who are listening, never let yourself get too high, never let yourself get too low. I think that there's a lot of, you see a lot of foolish movies and sitcoms are about people going into work in professional settings, and they're all fake. These are offices that are run by, real human beings that you were working in. Things are sometimes not going to go unfold as you plan. So just be where your feet are. Never let yourself get down in the dumps. Never let yourself get elated. And you're always a little bit more prepared than you think you are, as Kayla experienced.
Awesome. And never least, Jim. And Jim, congratulations. It looks like you've got a new title or a new promotion just recently.
Yeah. The director role is only about 3 weeks old. So previously manager. So yeah, this is good. Building on what everybody's saying, it's be yourself. It is, that's the most important thing. Certainly don't make up the answers. We're going to know. We're going to, we've been here for a while. We're going to ask you a lot more questions if you start making things up on that topic. The thing I see most that people kind of overlook is really preparing for the non-technical piece. Everybody that's coming through the room has a similar degree, has maybe similar experience, but not everybody does the legwork to look into what we do as a company. So many times I'm interviewing people, what does Martins Point do? I have no idea. You didn't even go to our website. You didn't even look up what our mission is. What are we about? So if one asks you, why are you here? And you can't answer that, everyone else has the same technical. I'm looking for the person who has that story. Have you looked at the job description and correlating what you know at this point to those items is really important. But that preparedness, that taking time to research the company you're looking at, the job you're looking at, and being ready to answer those questions as well as the technical, I think is really important and often a big miss. I'll see someone who's fantastic technical, but they haven't spent any time at all looking into what this is. And frankly, the job's a mismatch at times. But I want that person, but not for this role, because they didn't take that time to research it out.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. I think that's really helpful, and it ties into the next question here, which is, each of you kind of mentioned that there was a technical aspect, but it's really fundamentally important to kind of understand the culture of the organization that you're applying to, and have done your homework a little bit. But one of the questions that we got in our question and answer chat box here was around, just how much the technical part of the interview process is, and maybe each of you can talk a little bit about how that was evaluated and how that was done in the interview process. Were students asked to kind of go through technical exercises or anything like that? I know that can be a cause for nerves and things like that, because you don't know what you're going to be tested on. So maybe we can just reverse the order completely and go right back to Jim.
Oh, that's a great question. We kind of do 2 rounds in general for almost every IT position. So first round is that personality, who you are, why you're here, where your passions lie. Do you fit in culturally? Do you fit in to our current, team dynamic? The second round interview is usually with a panel of our technical experts, and they're the ones who are going to really drill you on the technology. And it's important to remember that they're not trying to trick you or mess you up. They're really just trying to understand where you are and how much work it would take to get you to where we need you to be. So consider it more of a helpful round than anything else. If you made it through to that second, we like you. We think that you're going to be a good idea, but we need to see what you know.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And maybe Liz and Caleb can talk a little bit from the Logically perspective of just kind of how tested new applicants are in terms of their technical expertise through the interview process.
Sure. So it's good. Caleb, I can take this and then you can talk about your non-interview and what you were asked there. I think, from a company like Logically, or any other MSP for the students that are out there looking for jobs, there's a couple options you can take. You can go to, a really great employer like Martin's Point, they're a closed loop system. They're delivering service in a single environment. You can go to, a consulting firm that delivers a single version of a service across an array of clients. And that's more what Logically does. We provide IT services to a variety of organizations. And within our org, we have a number of lines of business units. So our interview process typically starts out on the managed services side. And the most common entry point for us is with our tier 1 remote support team, or the help desk team. That's really our feeder system, and our mentality is the foundation of any good security is good IT. And so from a testing perspective and from a what we ask students, we really want them to have that baseline level of IT knowledge, starting out with your CompTIA A+, CompTIA Network Plus, the CompTIA Security. Those basic, those are very tactical certifications that you can get to kind of prepare yourself for the language. And certifications are great. They kind of give you that vocabulary to make yourself familiar with it. And so from the technical standpoint, it's really, can you build a basic network diagram? Do you understand how to troubleshoot with an end user? But we quickly migrate over into the people portion of it, because you can solve an end user's problem, but if you make them feel stupid, or they didn't enjoy the experience, it doesn't matter if you fixed it. And so technical for us, we'd prefer to find students that have really good soft skills, that have really good people skills, excellent critical thinking, because troubleshooting through technology problems is very systematic. So you have to really spend the time to understand going through those layers of troubleshooting in an organized way. With a great personality. So we really focus on those elements in the interview process. Caleb, I don't know if you want to expand on your experience.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So with Logically, I've done both sides of the interview. I've been the interviewee and I've been the interviewer. As the interviewee, it was a very quick technical questionnaire I essentially answered. It was, do you have the baseline competency for this? And it was like, yes. And then the second question that followed that was, well, what excites you? Right? What about Logically do you like? What about this team do you like? We have a couple of projects. Which of these sound exciting to you? And they were extremely exciting projects. There were things I was interested in. There were things I was genuinely passionate about. So when Greg asked me, and Greg is my boss directly, when Greg asked me, it's like, does this excite you? And are you going to have fun here? And are you going to be a valuable team member? I could give him an enthusiastic, yeah, I'm excited for this opportunity. And that's what I think ultimately got me the call back to have my internship. Now, when I'm on the other side of the table, and when I've interviewed future coworkers, one of the guys I'm closest with currently within Logically is a guy I interviewed 8 months ago. When I've interviewed those people, it was a very quick technical assessment again. It was a look at the background, look at certifications, and if they fit all of those check boxes, I'm happy. The second question is always, well, are you going to be somebody that I can see myself working with day in and day out? If I give you a project, do I think I'm going to have to handhold you through the project? Am I going to be worried about what work you can get done? And when you find somebody that can answer, no, I'm not going to be an issue, but you'll enjoy working with me regardless, then it's like, all right, this is a perfect fit. There's my sign on.
Great. Yeah, I think that's like spot on. And Kayla, last but not least, and you just went through this process. So yeah, how much were you tested on your technical expertise versus kind of the 21st century skills, soft skills?
Well, for me, so first I was, being interviewed for an internship. So the expectation was, this was going to be like a, first level experience. There wasn't any expectation for prior, job history. But for me, like I had I had applied for one position and the interview was very technical. It was very technical and I felt awful afterwards, but I did the best that I could. And then another interview I had, it had very general questions, like where do you see yourself going? So what type of classes have you taken? I took ethical hacking, I've taken, policies and procedures, and I had a lot of different class experience, and then I had a lot of work experience that wasn't necessarily directly related in information security, but it provided me with people skills. And I worked in the financial aid office, and I worked at Chipotle, which wasn't anything related to my where I wanted to go, but it did provide me with a lot of skills that I would use. I communicate with my teammates on a daily basis. I have to work with third-party vendors that aren't directly WEX employees, but they're people that we work with. And I have to be able, to talk to them and know how to communicate with them effectively. So my second interview, it didn't have necessarily a lot of technical questions, but it also depended on, the position I was applying for. For WEX, they have an summer internship program where they look at a bunch of, students looking for internships, and they try to find a best fit for you. So my boss at the time, the way that I explained what I was looking for wasn't necessarily how he interpreted what the job role he was looking for was. But then he's like, oh, so that's not exactly what my team does, but, this is what we do. And, do you still think you'd be a good fit for it? Would you, want to work with that? And I'm like, yeah, because even though I hadn't explained it correctly, it was still along the lines of what I was looking for. So sometimes it is very specific. We have a specific job role we want you to apply for. But for this specific internship program, they're like, okay, let's see if we can find a fit for you. Let's see if we have managers who are looking for, employees, and let's see if we can find a good fit for you so then you can grow into that role.
Thank you, Kayla. Yeah, I think that it depends in a lot of circumstances, and I think that your experience kind of flags that for our students that are looking to apply to positions now. And I hope that answers your question. And again, if anyone watching has any questions, feel free to enter it in the Q&A. And I'll pass the next question over to Professor Monin.
So I want to go back to something Liz said, because this is a really big question I get often, and it's a question that has no right answer. This thing is being sponsored both by USM and Project Login, and this represents basically the two sides of the coin. And so the question is, where do you see certifications fitting into somebody wanting their first job or their next job? And where do you see education fitting into things? And again, realize I don't care what your answer is. So go ahead and say you're all certs if you want to. I brought in that speaker. I'm totally fine with that. So Liz, you brought this up. And also I forgot to congratulate you. You've actually got a new title too, of Chief Operating Officer too.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I feel like you're asking me to wade into a debate in the IT world that will get me either hate mail or mostly hate mail sent. So
no hate, just truth.
So I have a little bit of a skewed perspective because I liberal arts undergrad, and then only because I didn't know what the heck to do, ended up getting a master's degree. My parents are both teachers, and so I am a firm believer that being able to learn is a great skill that you can have. Being able to write is a great skill, no matter if you're on the technical side of the coin or you're on the ops side of the coin. So my bias is on folks who show that they have the organization and the motivation to continue to learn. That said, certifications are only as good as the skills that you can apply them to. So sometimes a certification is kind of the barrier to entry to be considered. And so I don't want any students listening here to think that, I'm good, I already know this, I don't need the cert for it. The certification is a validation to external parties of your skills. So even if you can already do it, showing that you've got the executive functioning and administrative skills to get the certification is a big plus. And it's kind of the skills that show that you can get certified that employers are looking for. As you embark on your IT career, there are advanced level certifications that are much more intense and really are a true test of your knowledge. And those can be extremely valuable and lucrative to pay increases and getting to your next level. So I think the certification conversation for students listening on this call, my recommendation would be look at the foundational levels of certification and get them. Because it shows that you've got that aptitude in that organization to get them. And then, as you go through your career, and it's going to last a lot longer than you think. I remember when I first started out, it's just like, oh my gosh, when am I going to be experienced? And then all of a sudden I woke up and I was like, I think I'm considered experienced. So it happens faster than you think, but be open to really being able to validate your knowledge. In Caleb's world, and for the security folks, the CISA certification, Caleb, did I say that right? That the CISA certification is legit. The CISSP is legit. So those are once you get past those kind of entry-level certifications, there are some really, really important ones that can not only validate your knowledge, but also help to expand it.
Awesome. So let's go to Caleb. So you've actually sat on both sides of the interview table. So you could talk about how you were evaluated, and you were evaluated by multiple companies, not just logically, but I'm sure you've went through a few of them. So you could talk about multiple experiences and then what you're looking for when you're sitting on that other side.
So, yeah, I'm happy to. So when I was getting evaluated by multiple companies, including Logically, I was coming out as an undergrad, right? And so most of everything was a basic competency question. It was, okay, what have you actually learned in undergrad, and have you retained those skills? I also, while in undergrad, went out and got a couple of the baseline security certifications, like the ISAC, Cybersecurity Fundamentals, the Nexus Plus, those kinds of things, just to say, hey, not only do I have a degree in this, but I'm also showing the real world competencies that are associated with this degree. So when I'm answering a question, I'm not answering it just because I Googled it. I'm answering it because I've studied about this, and I will continue to study. The other thing that I would like to just give a recommendation to all grads is to go ahead and figure out what they're truly passionate about, and then find the certificate that's associated with it. So if you are into security, go ahead and set the goal of saying, hey, I want to get my CIS, my CISSP. Right? And then thinking about all the certificates along the way that'll get you there, right? So saying, okay, I want my CISP. Well, I know the CH funnels a decent amount of information into the CISP. I know my CISO will funnel a decent amount of information into my CISP. I know if I get my Security Plus, that's going to funnel a lot of information into my CISP. And then take those like benchmarks, those nice little stepping stones to get there. It'll make it easier. It'll go ahead and give you all the competencies you need. And it takes the big one, it makes it a lot easier. And also, as a side note, if you're looking at something like a CISP, those certificates give you an extra year of experience. So if you come out and you get something like your CEH, which has no experience requirement, you can get that, and now you're coming out with 2 years of experience as opposed to 1 just for your undergrad degree. Right? Now, oh, sorry, Mark.
No, go ahead. Keep on going. Run.
Now, if you're on the other side of the table, when I'm looking at and interviewing people, it's always, okay, well, do you have it, or do you want to have it? And what are your actual goals with it? For example, I've talked about interviewing Aaron, the guy I work with all the time. When I interviewed Aaron didn't have a CISA, but he was interviewing for a senior auditor position, right? The question is, well, if you don't have this, what's your timetable to get it? He's like, I'm extremely interested. I'll have it by June. That's the kind of response I would like. It gives you a set timetable. It says this person is committed to it. And now it's given everybody the expectation to know that he will be within this role and functioning at a senior level by that time.
And so my follow-up to you is, what do you think got you the job? Do you think it was the degree? Do you think it was the certification? Do you think both? Do you think neither?
I think the degree and the certification was enough to get my foot in the door. I think I got the job because I made Greg and Matt laugh a couple of times. A fun story, I met them actually at a career fair, kind of like this, but in person. And we were all sitting there. They were just both in suits, and I was coming up as a random day after class, and I said hi. And one of who ended up being our senior VP of sales, I believe, just he made some offhanded remark, and then I made a comment about how I dislike NC State, our rival university here in North Carolina, and he giggled for a while, saying he was an NC State grad. I was like, all right, I've got my foot in the door. So I sent him an email later that day saying, hey, nice to meet you. If you have any positions available, please talk to me. And so I think that's ultimately what did it for me.
Awesome. All right, so let's go to Jim. What's your thoughts on education and certifications?
It's such again, echo what Liz said, that is such a loaded and difficult question to answer. Education, the formalized education, again, as Liz was saying, shows me that you have the initiative to do that. It shows me that you have the skill set to do that. Isn't necessarily a technical skill set. It is a skill set to navigate that system and achieve those goals. That is a skill set I'm looking for. The certifications are just, that baseline that, all right, this is a knowledge that you've proven, you've taken a test, you know the nomenclature of whatever the system you certified on. We don't have to really talk that much about that. You've established that as a fact. And so that's helpful. The challenge is, of course, certifications like that can be very specific and may not be what we're looking for. So again, it's back to you to say, how does this certification apply to what I'm actually here for, what I'm actually interviewing for? Yes, I have a certification in security and I'm looking at a help desk role. I can use that to accomplish these things, I think. And even if you're a little off on that, it's still that you've spent that time and thought about that is very, very helpful and will go a long way. Being able to talk about the challenges you went through getting your degree, in university, also very helpful. Again, not necessarily the technical piece, but where were the struggles? Was it communication, with creative writing, the other non-technical pieces? Those are great stories that we love to hear when we're interviewing you. A lot of times we'll ask, what is the hardest thing that you've encountered thus far starting out on an IT career? And, say, I didn't understand this technology. Okay, why? But when we see folks like, this was the thing that I really struggled with, here's why, and then here's what I did, that's the piece I really want to hear more than anything else.
Great.
So yeah, degree is important, certifications are important, but the person is the most important piece.
Nice answer. All right, and of course, Kayla, you represent basically what everybody in the audience wants to know. Somebody who has just left the student world and is fresh into corporate America. And so, this is front and foremost. What did you find useful when you talked to people in those interviews?
So I know with my interview with WEX, the one that was 15 minutes right on the spot, I had never met my manager, Mike. I had never met him before. I had applied online through a recruiter, and then they're like, okay, well, your possible manager wants to talk to you. So I didn't even know him. I never even talked to him, and it was an over the phone conversation. And for me, prior to the interview, I was, looking at certifications that I would possibly want to have. Back in high school, I had gained a certification that had since expired, but I made sure to put that in my resume to, and it helped. I believe it probably showed that, I was capable of getting a certification, just like, Jim and Liz had mentioned, showing that you're capable. But for me, he asked a lot of questions about where did I start? How did I get into this area, and what's motivating me to, move forward and what I wanted to do. And, I had mentioned I want to take Security Plus, and eventually down the road, I'd see myself as getting my CISA or my CI SSP. I didn't have any immediate plans in place because I was focused on getting my, degree, but I was thinking about it, it was on my mind, things that I wanted to do with it. And so I think that really helped, especially since it was a verbal, over the phone conversation where he got the sense of who I was and what my goals were. So that for me was what I took from it. But at the same time, like everyone else, it really depends on the company you're applying for. I've heard some places, are looking for the certifications and really want them. And some places, they want to see the bachelor's degree. It really does depend on where you're applying. And so, you kind of got to look at it and be like, okay, well, you got to for the interview and with your resume, focus, have it directed towards where you're applying to. Don't just have a general overall one, but, make it so it's, direct to where you're applying. But like everyone else said, it really, they're both important.
Great. All right, so I'll hand it back to Andy, who has the next question.
Thank you. And yes, we tell students all the time to make sure that you tailor your application to the place that you're applying to. That's so important and so critical. And my question kind of relates to the application process. So let's say you're a student and you've got your certifications, you've done the right coursework, and now you're kind of opened up to the field of applying to different organizations and different positions. As a student, what kind of advice would you give them for selecting an organization that has the right kind of fit? And maybe, a part of that, what is the kind of culture of the organization that you currently are working with, and how did that make a difference in whether or not you accepted the role that you're in? And I like to keep changing the order up. So if it's okay, I'll start with you, Kayla.
All right, so WEX, we're a global company. We provide, technical solutions for financial, like payment, we work with Fleet, where we provide, the background technology for, gas cards, fuel cards. We do corporate payments, and we also do, health. So we're kind of the background technology, solutions. So we have a broad variety of people working. I work on the back end, but basically, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Sure.
Yeah,
a little bit of,
but
yeah, just, a little bit of like what the culture is like. What is kind of like the informal way that things work, and how did you know that like WEX was, this is where you wanted to be as opposed to somewhere else?
So for me, thank you for that. So for me, at first, I didn't really know much about WEX. I had a family member who had previously worked at WEX, but I really didn't know specifically what they did. As I just explained, I have a better idea of what they do now. But I work on the back end and not so much the customer end. But the environment is really like, what I really appreciated with WEX is they were all about personal growth, making sure you had a right fit in the company, not just for you, but for your managers, to how you can better, benefit, so every party could benefit. And, the internship program, they were all about, getting us to know the executive leadership team, knowing what we do and what their company values were. And so for me, I live like about an hour away. They're very accommodating for the internship. They wanted to, they wanted to like get you in a, I believe they actually worked with USM to have interns, live at the dorms if they were from out of state or had, needed accommodations. So that was one. I didn't need personal accommodations, but, I believe that was one thing that a lot of interns, benefited from. They tried to think, well, as an intern, what is it that you are looking for? Growth, learning about the company. And for me personally, it was just, the growth, because for me, I hadn't had any prior job experience. So that's really what I wanted to see was, how are they interested in having us grow? Are they interested in, our pursuits as well? And so that was really like a big thing for me. And even now as a full-time employee, they're still, okay, if you want to get certifications, let us know. We can help you pursue those. If you want to travel, if you, have other goals in mind, let us know. So that was a big thing for me. And that's kind of like the main thing that I was attracted to when it came to WEX.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And, having a culture of growth can be really appealing, particularly for someone who's starting out and you're just trying to soak in as much knowledge. Jim, how about you and Martin's point?
It's an interesting thought. I think starting off on your career, it's great to see a lot of different things. So again, I think Liz mentioned it before, usually the starting point is a good help desk, finding a place there where you can just see so many things that you hadn't even thought of, things that you don't even know exist. There are jobs out there in IT that you've never even heard of. And certainly no one's going to talk about yet in school, that might be the perfect fit for you. Um, the real thing, and you know, kind of building on what Kayla's talking about, I think, is finding out what you're passionate about. When you're looking at this career and visualizing it over the next 10 years, like, all right, you're going to be happy doing this exact thing. You're a programmer, and that's really what you really want to do. Great. Start looking around in your area. Who are the best programming teams? Ask folks. Go to all of the sort of cultural clubs of programmers that exist. There's always one meeting for drinks every Friday. Find that group and find out who the best is. And then go to that group when you go to apply. Find the one that's going to fit your passion. And then when you get to the interview point, being able to tie that all together is going to be really powerful for the people interviewing you. If that passion mismatch happens, you know, you feel that in the interview. Why are you here? And okay, great. So find why you're doing this. Why do you want to be a programmer? Why do you want to get into security? What really is resonating for you in that industry? Now find the company that really is focused on that as well. And again, find those groups, those communities. They're out there. They're out there somewhere. They're meeting every Friday at a pizza place for drinks and talking about what's in your environment. And again, another place that you're going to find those jobs that you didn't even know existed. Someone's going to be doing something. You're like, wait, what is that? That sounds amazing. I want to do more of that. Martin's Point, we're a really unique company in that we have two entirely different businesses, really three, in that we have clinical healthcare, little clinics with primary care physicians. So you have a path where you can really pursue, like, you want to make sure everyone's healthy and happy and work with doctors and nurses. And that is a great passion. You can tie your IT career to that. We're also a Department of Defense contractor for an insurance. You want to talk about security, that is some incredible levels of security, but not a lot of people know we do that. That's where, if you ask around in the community, ask around Martin's Point, go to any job fairs you see and ask those kind of questions. What exactly do you do as an organization from an IT perspective, and find where your passion connects to that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So I'm hearing from Kayla, you know, growth is really important, and from Jim, I'm hearing, you know, the ability to be able to experiment, and also getting involved in your community of practice and understanding your own passion and kind of applying that to where you work. Caleb, let's talk about you and Logically.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm going to answer the question in a threefold process, and kind of the entire beginning to end cycle between prior to interview, and then accepting an offer. Prior to an interview, go on Indeed, Glassdoor, Dice, whatever you will, and find the jobs that seem genuinely fun to you. Ones that don't just seem boring. Find the ones that you go, oh, that's exciting. That's a great idea, right? Don't look for the ones that seem overly complex or the ones that you don't know, but look at the ones that genuinely find or pique your interest, and then look at those companies. The second part is, with those companies, they're always going to have a stated core mission, vision, and values, right? Logically, we tout ours all of the time. In fact, as the guy that makes proposals every day, I make sure they're always included, right? So when you're looking at a company, look at those. See, do my personal growth goals, do my personal values align with that of that company? And if they don't, it's probably not going to be a good fit, right? That's how that company operates. That's what they hold dear to them. And if you're not in agreement, it's not going to be right for you. But if it is, then it's a perfect fit. When I was initially applying for Logically, I was so they acquired our company a couple of years back. So I initially applied for a place called Carolina's IT, and the first thing they put up on their values was integrity. And that's my personal highest values, integrity. I always want to be honest about what I'm doing, whether somebody's there or not. And so when I was applying, I was like, look, if that's how you hold yourself from a day-to-day basis, that's all I care about, right? I know everybody here will be honest with me, we'll be able to complete our work. And as a team, I know I'm going to be able to grow with them. So that's my second piece of advice. Always adhere to those core mission, vision, and values, and make sure they align. The third one is, we've talked a lot about what the interview process is as a recipient, right? But when you're in an interview, you're not just being interviewed, you're interviewing the company as well to figure out if you're a good fit. So ask them, how am I going to grow here, right? You're going in as an entry-level position. You don't want to be entry-level your entire career. What are my next steps? How do I grow from here? What are the next things that you'll provide for me? How can I grow within your company to A, be a better team member, but B, be a more valuable employee? Make it so I know that my worth is appreciated, and have that honest conversation. At the same time, they want to know if you're a good fit for their team. You also want to know if you're a good fit for that company in the first place. So when they ask you questions, ask questions back. Ask what they do in their free time. How do they handle a work-life balance? How are they as individuals? And figure out if you're a good fit. It's not always the company interviewing you. You're also the interviewer in that situation.
Thank you, Caleb. Liz, anything to add about logically in that?
Yeah, I can't really, everyone did such a great job. I think that Caleb touched on something really important that I only just started doing, over 10 years into my career, but take a minute and outline your personal core values. So, mine are perseverance, work ethic, loyalty, authenticity, and then, humor, because if you can't laugh in the face of everything that goes wrong every day, then you're going to be a pretty miserable individual. So take some time to think about kind of what are the things that you value most. Because if you go into you'll find yourself, if you don't identify that bedrock for yourself, you will start to absorb the values of those folks around you. And sometimes that can be a good thing, but sometimes it might stray you off of your beaten path. So I think taking a few minutes as students now, you'd be well ahead of my game, and articulating what those 5 key things that are important to you will really help guide you through those interview processes and land in the right fit.
Thank you. I think that's such a great nugget of wisdom, is to really kind of do a self deep dive of, what are my values? And then you can use that as a launching point for, okay, what are this organization's values? Do we match up? Is this going to be a good partnership? Yeah, that great advice. Professor Monin, I'll pass it back over to you.
All right, so we've got a lot of people here that are in school, and many of them, especially if they're just starting school, have only done things like flipping burgers. And so their view of work is just this work. So first of all, I already know the answer, but I think the audience needs to hear this. They want to, can they make a decent wage where they really don't have to worry about, day-to-day dollars? And I don't want to hear actual salaries or anything, but they just need to hear that. And secondly, I think this is an opportunity to sell your individual companies. And say, what is it that the company is providing you as an individual, beyond just the salary. Oh, so let's I should pick a number. Okay, Caleb, go. Let's just start with you. I don't know any reason why. You are important though.
So the big question is, have I ever had to worry about the day-to-day dollars? And right out the gate, the answer was no. It's always been comfortable, and that's the first thing. Everybody here is going into an IT career. Well, all of the students are. So I don't think there's all that big of a worry for it. Once you get your first job, it's okay. Don't spend money extravagantly. That's a hard lesson I had to learn. But you'll be fine, right? The second question, though, is when you're interviewing, and I know this personally that Logically offers it, make sure that you're able to grow. The reason that I went with Logically, ultimately, it wasn't my highest offer by any means, but it was the one that said, well, we know A, we're going to have a good work-life balance, and B, we're going to make sure that you can grow as an individual. If you want certifications, go get your certifications. We're going to help you. We're going to have a stipend if you want to go back to school. All of those things that made me go, this is the area that I'm going to know I can grow in. They said that they had that perfectly. And so when it came time for me to choose which direction to go with my life, it was the one that, well, maybe I won't have the most money, but I know I'm going to be able to grow the farthest. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if really all you care about is your career, that's still the best option, right? And then if you're purely monetarily motivated, well, we all know certifications come with a decent raise. So why not choose the one that you can grow with from the beginning, right? So Liz, little selling point for you, Logically always has that and has always had that. So that's the reason I've been here.
Awesome. Liz, what can you add to Caleb's response? I mean, he did a great job.
I know it's Caleb's a fantastic resource. So I think relative to flipping burgers and Caleb talking about working in Chipotle, I will take folks who have worked in food service all day long, bring them, because you know how to handle customers in your face real time. So definitely, definitely skills that you learn on the job there. In terms of um, monetarily, I think that it's so hard to answer specifically for students because obviously living wage is a really hot topic in a lot of news stories right now, and we want to make sure that we are preparing students so that they can be contributing individuals, and certainly money stress is a very big deal. What I can say about the IT space is that it has some really high paying jobs. It certainly has its fair share of entry level jobs. And what I want students to understand as you're going through your career is you're going to have that external pressure of, well-meaning people constantly being like, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do now? Where are you going? And it can be very, very frustrating and very, very scary. But I think you will be okay. You will be okay if you have that baseline skill and know that even though there's a lot of talk about living wage and a lot of talk about people with these ridiculous sayings about how much you should be earned, there are rhymes that I won't even perpetuate here about what your 20s are for and what your 30s are for in terms of salary. But you're going to have to start out on a lower rung. And don't get yourself worked up about the speed and velocity with which you're going to go up, because part of what you're going to gain along the way that will help you effectively earn more is your ability to learn skills along the way. And that just takes time. A lot of folks don't realize to get to the higher level salaries because it's talked about in these, 31-minute long news segments about, really lucrative careers, is that the folks you see talking about their lucrative career, they were taking help desk calls 10 years ago. So you're living that beginning of your story now. Be patient. Start with that entry level job. Keep your eyes open. Start building your suitcase. Start building your resume with the things that are going to get you to where you want to go. But know that 10 years might seem like a long time, but it goes by in a blink of an eye. So use that time wisely.
Awesome. So let's go back to the fresher perspective. Kayla, how's WEX been treating you?
Well, at first, when I first came to WEX, we weren't in the middle of a pandemic. But since then, WEX has been really good with providing us the ability to work remotely, which for me, I live an hour away from my closest office. So for me, initially, when I first came to WEX, that was one thing that I was looking for. It wasn't just necessarily the money, will my financial and location situation work well? So I was able to talk to my boss and say, is there a possibility that I could work part-time in office and then part-time, from home? And, WEX is really good about, accommodating their employees. So that was one thing that I was, interested in, besides, the role itself. But then also too, they're very encouraging of, the work life, work and home life balance. They encourage you to take time off. My manager's always telling me, make sure to take time off, make sure to take time off. We know it's busy, we know it's hectic, but make sure you take your time for yourself and your family. And that was one thing, that I appreciated. And, coming from school, I was concerned about money. I'm thinking, I got student loans, I got payments I got to make, how am I going to, figure out things financially? But beyond, the money, you need to find out is the company that you're applying for, gonna be able to help you as well? Like WEX, they provide good health benefits and, the time off and the encouragement of being able to work remotely is the main thing that I find, invaluable, especially during this current time, because I'm not traveling back and forth and having to worry about gas. I'm not having to worry about, possibly getting exposed and exposing my family to COVID. So really, it's besides just the, forgetting about, the monetary and the salary or any of that. It's in today's world, it's you really need to focus about the other benefits, the encouragement to, broaden and further your education. I want to go and grab my certifications, the encouragement to talk to your managers about that, the encouragement of if there's anything you need from your family or anything, we're willing to help. WEX provides a lot of opportunities to go work in your community, to go do public service, have days to go do public service. WEX is all about their community. And that's what I think was one of the things that I liked was because, they're not just about what's best for them, but they're what's best for you as an employee. Because if employees, feel good with the company, then that's just going to benefit us as well. And they're very much about, their employees' happiness, their family's happiness, and their community. And so really when you're looking for a job, take the time, as we've mentioned, to think about what your needs are as well, not just so much for the job, but location, and your family's needs as well. So that's really kind of my perspective on that.
Awesome. And Jim, tell us how wonderful Martin's Point is.
It's extraordinary. It really is, and I'm not just saying that. To build exactly on what Kayla was just saying, though, don't look at that starting salary as the only thing that you're getting. There's a total compensation package that you really have to look at. If it's tuition reimbursement, and that's something you're really excited about doing, continuing education, that's income, right? Add that in. Certifications are getting paid for, classes for that are getting paid for by the company. Add that in, it all adds up. Martin's Point, I think what's unique about us, we're here in Portland, which is, an interesting environment for pay. A lot of Portland companies look at the Portland community and say, we'll be competitive in Portland. We look nationally. We want to make sure that we're competitive in every market. There's some that are, extremes where you can't, San Francisco or something, but we try to be competitive nationally, which leads to, again, what Kayla was saying, a future of working remotely is just going to continue to grow, especially with the pandemic. It's going to be harder and harder to get people to say, I want to come into an office every day. And it's going to be harder and harder to find the skill sets you need locally, especially in a small environment like Portland. You're going to have to look broader. So again, look at that whole package. What else is in it for you? We work really hard on every leadership level to make sure that money is not on the table, that we're going to pay you enough that we don't have to spend our time talking about that. We want to talk more about growth. We want to talk more about what's next for you and how you can develop the best you can be. If we're spending all of our time saying, well, if another 50 cents will get you to stay or another 75 cents, it's not productive, right? So where do you want to go? And look at that whole package. And to add what Liz said, I will hire people from food service every single day of the week. Don't discount that. The jobs you're doing right now that you might pick up while you're going to college, food service. Wow, do you learn so much in that? Thinking on your feet, how are you communicating, problem solving? These are skills that you pick up in that you don't even realize you're doing. Direct customer service, like in the retail, you're working in a retail store in the mall, especially now, it's probably terrible. You're probably encountering things all day long that are teaching you how to navigate complex social situations. You don't even know that's happening, but think about that for a minute. Pause and think. When you head into that interview, they're asking you, tell us about your troubleshooting skills. Well, in the restaurant business, I had to do this. In the, when I worked in the mall, I had to do these things. That is really experience that translates directly into what you need in IT. Guaranteed. If you're a successful restaurateur, you are going to be successful at IT.
Great answer. Okay, I'll pass it back to Andy.
Great, thank you. So Liz, a couple of questions ago, you remarked that, if you don't have a sense of humor and all the challenges that are popping up all the time, you're not going to make it too far. So I want to bring up, the big elephant in the room for all the students that are looking to apply to jobs in this current moment, and that's COVID. And so my question is, how has your world of work changed a little bit? What can students that are applying to positions now expect, maybe that's different through the application process, what they can expect being onboarded and just starting out. And yeah, maybe I'll start with you, Liz.
Sure. Yeah. What a weird year. I obviously remote, you can expect that. So really watch when you're doing your interviews, check and make sure your background is cool. Like, maybe no cutouts of Austin Powers or things like that. So, the weird things you never thought you'd have to think of. So for a company like Logically, we are, in terms of you'll hear the phrase SMB a lot, small, medium-sized business. We are like in this like schmedium category where we're not necessarily small, but we're not necessarily medium yet. And so when you're going through the interview process with Logically, it's going to be probably a little bit different from a large global company like WEX. So our onboarding process, we are working through making it remote, which can be challenging to coordinate mailing equipment, coordinating through Zoom or Teams video chats to make sure that people are going, you're able to talk to someone. It's hard to make someone feel comfortable about being in a new place when you're on a video call, but really just trying to transform our HR into a digital HR model. And in terms of, what students can figure out even before you get to the onboarding process, you have to get a job before you get to that onboarding process. There are still good jobs out there. And I think what you will have to do throughout this process, because nobody knows how this is going to end. So just absolve yourself of trying to figure out how this is going to end and just let it be. But there are still jobs out there, particularly for students with IT skills. You might need to be a little bit more flexible. How you envisioned the job you were going to have 6 months ago might not be the job that is available. That's okay. A lot of people have a variety of work experience on this panel, and we have all turned out just fine. So maybe get yourself to be a little bit more flexible, get yourself to be a little bit more resilient. And thinking about, okay, yep, so the software crashed and I missed my interview, like, oh, well, let's figure out how we can address this problem. And that's not unlike the world you're going to face working in IT or security. You do not work in this world because everything works smoothly. You're going to constantly be dealing with things being broken, people making mistakes, you having to fix them. That is what you are literally training for. So work on your resilience, work on your flexibility, and just be more open.
Thank you. Caleb, anything to add to that? How things have kind of changed in the time of COVID?
Yeah. So my favorite change is currently I am wearing a nice dress shirt, but on top of that, I'm wearing gym shorts and fuzzy socks, which I absolutely love. The fact that this is the first time I've put on a collared shirt in a few weeks is great. So I will never complain about that. The one piece of advice I'll tack on to what Liz stated is learn how to have a clear delineation or separation of where work is and where your home is. When you're fresh out of college, let me put it that way, you're most likely like me living in an apartment. It's a small space, so stating that this is my workspace and this is not my workspace becomes really hard. So give yourself other indications that I'm no longer at work, I can take a break. I'm really bad at saying that personally, but for everybody else, having that separation that way where you can just say, okay, I'm done for the time being, will save you so much stress in the long run.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I also have some fuzzy socks on, so I can appreciate that. Jim, let's go over to you. How have things changed over at Martins Point?
I am not wearing socks. So point that out. Everybody has their preferences. So much of what we've been talking about and all along this is around the communication, and communication became more challenging during COVID, right? Without being able to just walk over and see somebody or turn your head slightly to the right and say hi to somebody. We've had to find opportunities to create that environment. So we have a lot more just short, 10-minute sort of Zoom meetings where everyone just says, everyone okay? Does anyone need anything? And they usually amount to not much. Everybody moves on. You have to really be ready for those. I think it's important to know that anyone looking up at their boss and thinking, I'm not feeling connected right now. I don't understand what's going on, to take that moment to reach out and say, I'm not feeling connected. I don't know what's going on. I think every boss out there, I'm speaking for all of them, I'll be bold, wants to hear that, wants to know how to keep you connected. And I think that's been the biggest challenge right now, finding those opportunities to create those relationships where you go stand around the water cooler and talk about The Walking Dead or whatever, shows on TV today. That's missing. So create those via Zoom is what we've been doing. a lot of little huddles.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And one of the reasons why I'm so appreciative of all of you joining us is that it kind of helps create some of that connection, even though we're not able to do an event like this live and in person for our students. Kayla, you already kind of touched on this a little bit about having a little bit smaller commute to and from work every day. But how else have things changed for you in the workplace over at WEX?
Well, for me, it's like just graduating from college. I'm a big social butterfly. I don't necessarily go out and do a bunch of social activities with friends, but I'm the type of person that enjoys being like face to face with my coworkers and talking to people face to face and laughing, having fun. And so for me, being a remote worker, that was a big change. Now it's like I have meetings like, virtually, and, I'm chatting with my teammates, not necessarily directly, but over chat or email. And so for me, the emphasis so much for me has been to communicate effectively. Know when you need to contact someone. It's during this time, you need to put a lot of effort into, personally socializing with friends, and then, professionally making sure you're staying in contact with your coworkers, making sure you're staying in contact with your boss. So for me, I need to make sure I have an effort. It's like, okay, if I have questions, if I have a problem, ask for a meeting, or, send a quick email, saying, hey, I have some issues, or I've been seeing some problems, can we talk? What's been good for me is like my team and I talk on a daily basis. We have weekly meetings. I don't have any socks on either. And like sometimes I'll have my pajamas on. Don't tell anyone else that. But I mean, a lot of the times for me, it helps to be present. For me, some days I have days where, maybe I'm not feeling motivated. I'll get dressed for work. So that way I feel motivated. I feel like I'm going into the office. With school, I was like, okay, when I'm at school, I'm doing schoolwork. When I'm home, it's home. I don't have that option right now. So for me, I have to make sure, okay, I have my office, I'm going to go in, do work. Okay, I'm going to dress for like I'm going into the office. So that way I feel like I'm in the office. Now I'm more focused. For me, the communication, putting yourself in that mindset to be, set for work. That's, the whole way I, conduct myself is different in that sense. But, talk to your team, make sure like you have chats with your team. My team and I like laugh and have these weekly meetings, and we talk about work, but a lot of times, we're also talking about our personal lives and like what we're doing. It's like, oh, hey, like I just went on my team meeting this past week and had my witch mask on as a laugh because Halloween's tomorrow. So they're like, oh my God, what did you do with your hair? Like, did you do something different? And, we were all giggling and laughing. So, communication is really a big emphasis for me with the change because, being social, being active and present, that's the big thing nowadays with the COVID, make sure you're talking to your team, make sure you're still, being social and, talking with people, even if you can't be in person, find ways to put you in a mental state where you're present. That's really my big, change and big emphasis. And if anyone listening and watching this, put the effort in to be present.
Thank you so much for that. So I think we have time for just one last question for each of you, and I will pass that over to Professor Monin.
I'm going to end with basically a little bit more of an academic question. I'm going to take the COVID question, and I'd like to give everybody listening a little bit of an insight into our daily jobs. And so the question is, how has COVID affected your company? Not necessarily you. We've all talked about how it does, but whether it's supply chain, whether it is the number of work requests, whether it's more abuse on the VPN or whatever. So I'd love to them just to hear a little bit more about what's it doing for the IT and cybersecurity side of things. Jim, I haven't called you first ever, so I feel I should do that.
That's very nice of you. Thank you. It's changed so many things. We're a company of about 1,000 people. On average, on any given day, we had 50 to 100 people working remotely. Within 2 weeks, we were up to 500 people working remotely, which was incredible. So yeah, the back end, making sure that all of our VPN, all those systems could maintain. As I mentioned before, we're clinical. So transitioning to telehealth, something that every clinical environment talks about on any given day, but it's hard to put together a full strategy. But we had to pivot to doing televisits in, again, 2 weeks. So, creating those workflows were very rapid and dynamic. And as we mentioned before, stay flexible, right? This is, as I think Liz said, right? You need to be flexible. You need to look at things are going to change. Um, that's probably been the biggest difference, and it's continuing. It hasn't ended, right? There's continuous change as everyone's learning. Well, that didn't work. Let's try this. That didn't work. Let's try this. We have tents set up like you see on the news, folks driving in their cars to be tested. What technology does that need? Is there technology? How is that technology safe and secure from a security perspective? And how is it safe and secure from a COVID perspective? How many times can you wipe a laptop down before it stops working? Things like that you'd never even thought you would cross your plate are now a daily conversation. Like, what did you use to clean this? You can't do that on the screen. It's ruined now. It really is the number one thing we spend our day on right now.
Yeah. And Liz, your Logically supports many companies, so it's affecting you, but it's also affecting your clients. So how's it changed?
It's changed. So the beginning, middle of March was just like this crazy town time, where all of a sudden, 400 or so customers, who you couldn't, maybe I would say probably 80% of whom, were pretty strict about remote work, never had to worry about it. We're all of a sudden like, we got to get remote. And so we've never had to work so hard and so fast to essentially deliver the same service. So that put an incredible amount of stress on our staff just from a velocity standpoint, and they did so well to respond to it. I mean, the phone was ringing off the hook, the tickets were coming in through or there's basically 3 channels that folks can put requests into, flooded, people looking for laptops. So operationally, we did see some issues in supply chain that were exacerbated by months before. And Jim, you probably dealt with this as well, but there was a processor shortage unrelated to COVID. So it was difficult to find laptops regardless. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, wow, we need to get everybody laptops. So it was crazy. So there was definitely supply chain disruptions. There was definitely an incredible amount of service actions that came in from our customers who never ever wanted to work remote, actually eschewed conversations consulting to have them work remote, that all of a sudden flipped the switch and were really wanting to go into that mode. And so we just had to respond as quickly as we can and get flexible to get people remote because they could not safely go into the office. So just an incredible amount of work that had to happen in a very short period of time. And then of course, what people forget, because it's such a positive thing, it started with a negative thing, lots of furloughs. So we had to respond to reducing, user lists but then bringing them back. And so it was really difficult to catch a rhythm. IT is really about establishing repeatable rhythms and cadences. We don't like surprises. We like to smooth it out. And we just lost all power to smooth out the way service was consumed because we were at the mercy of the situation. So really what it boils down to, an incredible amount of stress on our staff and on our customers, just trying to continue to stay productive. I thought both our staff and our customers just weathered that change incredibly, incredibly well. The more change is going to occur, but I think our capacity for change has both increased, but we're also very tired. So it will continue to unfold, and we'll see how it goes.
Awesome. And Caleb, sticking with Logically, you're on the security side of Logically. So how's it affected the security side?
I will put it this way. March was one of the busiest months of my life. Liz is laughing. So when we all got the work from home notice, it was okay. How do we adjust to this way of life? And there was a small time period where everything genuinely slowed down and everything was a little bit confusing. I had a reassuring call from Liz actually that kind of smoothed over all of the tension of initially moving in. And then right after that, I work in cybersecurity incident response. It's one of the many hats I wear. I manage most of our more advanced security tools. And right when that happened, we started seeing a huge uptick in the number of infections on both people that we work with and some people that we knew locally, and future clients now. And so immediately when that started happening, it turns out when everybody's working from home, the people who are also malicious actors are also working from home and forward. and they were in the same boat I was, so they decided to do something about it. I'm a little thankful it gave me something to do, but it was a huge uptick, and it's still a huge uptick. And for people who are looking at getting careers in cybersecurity, there's still a huge uptick. One of the things that's really lucky about what I do is I'm passionate about what I do. And so just like anybody else following sports, I like to follow incidents. And just this week, 7 more hospitals, and you're probably aware of this, Jim, have been hit with by TrickBot and other ransomware. So it's an amazing time to get into security purely from the aspect of there is work and it is advancing. So if you're purely interested, it's a great time. That being said, it is a very difficult time because the workload is definitely increased.
And Kayla, WEX has many, many customers everywhere. And so how has COVID affected WEX and you know, and yeah, just run with it.
Yeah, so kind of going off what Liz and Jim and Caleb have said, like, you know, we had to transition from being like, you know, in office to going fully remote. And we've had several platforms that have gone remote, and we've had influx of, people trying to, send, phishing emails and trying to, hack into our systems. And me specifically, my team is risk and compliance. And so really for me specifically, we've had to like be on the ball with, making sure our third-party vendors, that they have controls in place, to protect with all the, virtual attacks and, the uptake that we've seen. And like for me, I need to make sure our employees are aware of what to be on the lookout for. We've seen, all these attacks, that are, either COVID based or they're, IRS based. And, they're really trying to get people, especially since people right now are so not vulnerable, but like they're on edge because of everything that's going on right now. So you really don't know what to expect. And WEX as a whole, we've had to make sure employees have computers. They had to ensure employees had the hardware that they required. I had to go in and grab monitors and docking stations and make sure I had everything that I could do to do my job from home. So for WEX, the point was, okay, let's make sure our employees have what they need so that way we can stay as productive as we were when we were all working together, like, in office. So we've had this, the platforms convert, we've had to convert to, remote with our employees and make sure they had what they need. So really, it's kind of like, on the same thing as, Caleb and Liz and Jim's mentioned, so that's kind of been the whole environmental change for us, is like, okay, what can we do to stay productive? What can we do in case this drags on? And what can we do if this were to happen again to make sure the effect has been smoothed out and isn't so much as a like big change versus like a gradual, okay, so we've seen this again, let's put our procedures back, to how they were. So that's kind of what we've been seeing, and then what I've kind of seen from my angle.
Thank you. Okay, so Andy?
Sure. Yes, I think that's a great way to end on just kind of, it's been a crazy, crazy year. And certainly the future is going to be just as full of changes, and it's on, students that are coming up to just be adaptable and resilient in this interesting environment. So I just want to thank all of our panelists so much for taking the time this morning, and Professor Monin as well. It's been really informative. I've learned a lot, not coming from this industry at all. And I just really appreciate your time to connect with our students. And so, yeah, with that, I'm gonna close the webinar here, and thank you for everyone who attended, and thank you for our partners at Project Login and Educate Maine. And until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.